Good afternoon and hello everyone. My name is Rich Longo and I'll be your host for today's presentation. We have quite the number of folks joining us today and quite the number of folks already on. So as we prepare to get into this presentation, we'll take a couple minutes introducing everybody to give them that chance. Today's Flycast Partners presentation is on unified approach to endpoint security. And we are very happy and pleased to have our presenter as John Wallace of Ivanti. John has well over 20 years in the technology industry and has been with AppSense for almost 12 years before they became part of Ivanti. John has served in many roles assisting customers with the understanding and use of endpoint security for their organization. Now, before we get started today, John, let me introduce our organization. Flycast Partners is here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience. We're founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space. We took the best ideas from all of these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become a leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation and services and training in ITSM, ITAM, ITOM, workload automation, as well as enterprise service management consulting, all using nothing but ITIL best practice. Our professional services can easily scale up or down to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of your size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing remote administration and support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on those normal day-to-day operations, saving you both precious time and money. I encourage you to reach out to us directly at 844-FLYCAST, that's 844-359-2278, or simply visit our website, folks. Check out some of the items that we offer as far as future webinars that are coming up. I believe next week we have a webinar on asset management you might be interested in. Share with your coworkers and whoever else might be interested. Check out some of the training offerings that we have and other technologies and processes and some of our ESM offerings. I encourage you to download any white papers or data sheets that may interest you. With today's webinar, and during today's webinar, we will be able to take your questions live. I encourage you to please type those questions in the WebEx Q&A section of this presentation. When you type those in, I will read those off to John Wallace at a time that's appropriate to barge into his presentation, and he'll answer you live for as long as time will allow. So at this point, I would like to turn this presentation over to John. John, I have passed the screen over to you, and I see you're sharing it now, and we'll let you get this show on the road.
Awesome, thank you. Let me just go ahead and share my desktop here, and just to double check, you can see my screen, right?
It looks great. It looks fantastic.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I'm happy to be on this webcast. I'm happy to be delivering the material I am delivering today. I actually just got back from a trip to Las Vegas. I was over there talking to attendees of the Gartner conference, and it was nice. It was nice to see a lot of enthusiasm around not just individual products, not just individual pieces of technology, but the approach of unifying IT, the approach of bringing all of this stuff together. Ivanti is in the business of what we call unified IT. Now, I want to just be specific a little bit. I'm actually going to start the presentation with a little bit of a baseline. I'm going to tell you who Ivanti is and what unified IT means to Ivanti, and then we're going to drill down into the security aspects of our portfolio. Just before I start, a little bit on unified IT. You know, when I say unified IT to people, often people will think it's just a matter of bringing all of the products together under one big GUI and one big console and things like that. And it really isn't. Unified IT really applies to the IT teams, the IT departments, if you like. If you look at the average IT team and department that's out there, they're very siloed. You have your security team, you have your desktop team, you have your Active Directory team, and there's all of these different teams or groups of people, and they all have their different tools and technologies and things like that. And it's rare that they talk to each other. It's rare that they collaborate. I don't mean, they sit there and ignore each other, but oftentimes these teams don't collaborate. They don't work together. And the reality of it is there's processes and tools in one of these teams that can help another team, that can drive a piece of technology that another team has, for example. So when we talk about our IT platform, when we talk about this vision of unified IT, what we actually mean is bringing these teams together, leveraging a technology platform or a technology basis that allows these teams to interact more effectively, allows these teams to be more efficient. And there's also an element of what we refer to as DevOps type of approach to this as well. If anyone's got a background in development, one of the things that they'll be familiar with is this constant test, advise, input information, those types of cycles. And we want to kind of bring that into IT as well. So this concept of pushing something out to the user, getting feedback, using that feedback to make smart decisions, adapting, tweaking the solutions that are out there. This is a big part of unified IT as well. And hopefully as we go through the presentation, it'll kind of become clear what I mean by that. So this is our tagline. We unify endpoint security, service management, IT asset management, identity management, and unified endpoint management. I know it's a mouthful, but the reality of it is, if you actually look at IT, this is what IT do. Every job, every function of IT typically fits into one of these 5 buckets. Before I talk about our technology, I want to just give a little bit of historical perspective. Everyone likes to talk about where things are, or where things have been, where things are going. This is our attempt at that type of presentation. If we go back to the early days of IT, IT was relatively straightforward, but it was also a manual process as well. Typically, your IT admins would build the OSs, they'd install the operating systems onto computers, they'd install the applications, they'd have stacks of floppy disks and things like that, and everything was typically manual. If the user had a problem, the user would phone up someone in IT, and that person would then come running out with, again, a stack of floppy disks and go ahead and either update their application or install something new. But again, it was all manual. And then IT kind of evolved. Now, these problems didn't disappear. We still had to do IT operating system management, application management, but now we had some additional challenges as well. We started to see things like laptops come into the organization, and laptops were remote. They were on-premise, they were off-premise. So now we had to start to deal with things like asset management. What happened when the asset left the organization? What happened when it left the building? Is the data protected? Is someone leaving it on a train and someone's taking it home and getting trade secrets? Because of the increasing computing resource use, we also had to start to automate some of these tasks as well. We had to start to package our applications and use software installation technologies. And then we started to see the introduction of security issues. Things like virus and malware. I mean, these were starting to become a problem, but we also started to see the birth of things like targeted attacks as well. People attacking organizations in order to steal trade secrets in order to cause havoc on these organizations. And then we evolved again. The things like virtualization came out. And again, all of these challenges, they didn't disappear. They still existed. We just had more of them. Security evolved into things like data protection, network security. We're now putting firewalls out there and intrusion detection and HIPs and various other pieces of security technology out there as well. Our help desk, that one person who used to answer the phone and go running out with a load of floppy disks, well, now we've got this concept of a proper service desk. Users can actually log calls and have actions based on those calls, for example. We've got this concept of remote users or remote controlling organizations and remote controlling computing resources. So again, all of these challenges didn't disappear, they just grew. And this is kind of what our IT teams look like today. They've got all of these different problems and all of these different challenges, and honestly, they're buckling under the weight. They're struggling to hold up all of these balls in the air. They're struggling to learn all of these different pieces of technology that are out there. Now, the way in which IT has operated in the past, probably always has done, and in fairness probably will do for the foreseeable future, is when a problem comes up in IT, they go out and find a solution for that problem. I've got a login times problem. That's fine. I'll go out and find a tool that optimizes login times. I have a virus problem. That's fine. I'll go out and find an antivirus product. Every time a problem or a challenge comes up in IT, they go out and they find these solutions. And we call them point solutions, pieces of technology. Now, the solutions themselves, they're not bad. The technologies in their own right are not bad. There is some really, really good privilege management tools out there, for example. If your problem is admin rights management, there's some really good privilege management tools out there. And the reality of it is, if you actually dig under the hood, they all pretty much do the same thing. De-elevate, stuff like that. There's only so many ways in which you can manage user rights. It's not the technology that's the problem. It's the amount of pieces of technology that an IT organization manages. And the reality of it is they can't become experts in it all. So what you end up buying this expensive privilege management technology, but you only implement the basic policies because you don't have time to learn all of the buttons, gadgets, widgets, tick boxes, etc. And as a result, your solution isn't a good one. It kind of looks like this. The reality of it is, because of all of these boxes, IT don't have the time to innovate. Now, I don't mean IT. I want IT going out and building their own pieces of software, building their own technologies. I mean innovation in the technologies that they have, learning what all of the tick boxes and buttons and widgets and gadgets and all of that within the products that you have, learning what they actually do. Because you paid all of this money for these technologies, well, you kind of want to get 100% of functionality out of that technology as well. But you can only do that if you innovate with the technologies that you have. And the more technologies that you have, it makes it difficult to innovate. Plus, there's constant new demands from the business coming down, and the need to keep up to date with these demands as well. So, where are we going? Every vendor on the planet likes to have a slide that says the world is changing and it's changing in our favor. And the reality of it is the world isn't changing. The user is changing. Users are smarter today. They're more technically savvy. What we're actually seeing is we're seeing a world of what we call digital transformation, or as I like to call it, user self-service. And this is dangerous. This is scary when it comes to security. You know, I look at my kids. I've got an 8-year-old, I've got an 11-year-old, and I look at the capabilities that they have using things like an iPad or a computer and things like that, and they're smart. They know how to install apps. They know where to go to download stuff, for example. And this is scary. But digital transformation is in every aspect of our lives. We have app stores now. We don't have to go and buy software from a PC World or a Best Buy or something like that. We just go to a website, or we just go to an app and we just download it. When we check into the airline, for example, we don't talk to a human being anymore. We press a couple of buttons on a screen and out pops our boarding pass. When you go to Walmart or McDonald's, for example, when you go to McDonald's, you don't have to talk to a person to order food. You just go up to a screen and you can tap your food and it just arrives, which for me is awesome because I like to order like 3 Big Macs and that's normally embarrassing. So not having to do that to a human being is great for me. So self-service in that way works, but the reality of it is that self-service also introduces problems into an organization. We've got things like the power of Google, right? So every problem that we have now can be solved by a Google search. And users using Google to troubleshoot their IT problems is like users using Google to troubleshoot their medical problems. It's always worse than it is. I want to install a printer, I need a driver. Let me Google search the driver, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit the first link that's that's there. Well, the user doesn't realize that that link's a piece of spyware or a piece of malware, or it's not necessarily a driver, but it's going to take you to a site that then installs a load of things on your computer just to get the driver. The user wasn't trying to be a bad corporate citizen. They weren't trying to stick it to the man. They were just trying to get their driver installed. And if the user can't find the information on Google, well, then they'll go to the cube next door where Mavis sits, and they'll say, hey, Mavis, how do I do this, or how do I access this data? And then what Mavis will do is say, hey, if you install Dropbox, I'll share it with you. Well, now you've got data outside your organization, and you've got all kinds of security risks and problems there. And a lot of these decisions, a lot of these challenges are driven by the fact that we have strong consumer services. If you look at the likes of Dropbox, Dropbox is a phenomenal service. It is a phenomenal file share sync technology. I remember being introduced to Dropbox by my wife, and it was to share photographs. And I installed it, and all of a sudden these photographs popped up on my machine, and it was like, this is brilliant. And I can do these from my phone and my iPad and from the web and everything like that. Well, if I have that experience at home, I want that experience inside the organization as well. I don't want to have to VPN in and have this slow connection that disconnects every 10 minutes, and then use things like offline files, which every month loses my files and have to do a resync. The experience in IT was often horrible. Couple that with the examples that we have at home, and it's natural that as a user I want to bring in things like Dropbox and have that work inside my organization as well. So we end up with shadow IT. We end up with users managing their own IT. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. The reality of it is, if users can install their own applications from trusted sources, or they can install their own printers with drivers from trusted sources, this is a good thing because it takes pressure off. It takes pressure off IT. But if we don't control those things, we end up with accidental security threats. We end up with users wanting to circumvent corporate policy just to get their things done. The reality of it is that IT must partner with the user. They must become a partner with the user. They can no longer be this authoritarian department, the department of no, if you like, the department of, hey, this is what you get, deal with it or leave, because the reality of it is users will actually leave. And then that's a problem because HR don't like that. IT must also become the business. They must be the front line of the business, and users become a customer. Users are a customer with respect to IT. So how do we help? How does Ivanti help in this new and changing and insecure world? Everything that we produce, if you know anything about Ivanti, you'll know that over a number of years we've made a large number of acquisitions of different pieces of technology, whether that be in security, whether that be in asset management, service management, etc. We have typically gone out and we have acquired in every area that we want to be. We've acquired the number one or number two or a significant portion of technologies in those spaces. And the reality of it is that everything we do, every button, widget, gadget, feature, function, etc., fits into one of these 5 buckets. It's either a security piece of technology, endpoint management, asset management, service management, or fits in the identity bucket. Now, we could sit here, and as I said earlier on in the presentation, we could sit here and we could actually create an Uber GUI that brings all of these pieces of technology together. So you open up one screen and you've got every single tick box from every single function. And the reality of it is that when we finish that, the world will have moved on. Maybe Burger King's doing self-service now, for example. But you as a customer, you wouldn't have anything. You'd have a fancy GUI, but you wouldn't have any new features and new technology. You wouldn't have smart intelligence or automated bots and things like that. That's the stuff that you really want. You're not really bothered about GUIs. It's the stuff that actually works that you want. So in order to do this, what we have is we have a platform. We call this our unified IT platform. And everything that we have sits on top of this platform. And this platform is doing things like leveraging big data in the cloud, leveraging AI and all of the different pieces of smart technology that's out there. And our platform really does 3 or 4 things today. The first one is discovery, because you can't manage, you can't secure what you don't know about. You've got to go out there and you've got to discover your assets and discover your software and discover your applications and users and all of those things. The second thing is reporting and analytics. Now, I don't mean, when it comes to reporting and analytics, I don't mean just going to the security products, for example, and taking the logs and giving you a list, a big CSV file of all of the files that have been executed. That doesn't make sense. Anybody can do that. But what we can do with our reporting and analytics is we can take that data and we can compare it, or we can combine it with other pieces of information, and we can give you smart advisors. We can give you something that will actually give you recommendations and tell you what to do based on the information that you have. Let me give you a Windows 7 to 10 migration example. I know it's not security, but let me just use this as an example. There are many vendors that can go out there, scan your network and say, okay, you have 50 machines that run in Windows 7, of which 30 of them have the CPU and memory in order to go to Windows 10. That's not a difficult thing to do. We will take that same information and we'll say, okay, based on that though, you've then got 30 machines, of which 10 of them are going to be out of warranty. We've queried the CDW database, 10 of them are out of warranty in 6 months. So financially, dollars and cents, doesn't make sense to upgrade those machines. You're going to be swapping them out in 6 months anyway. Let's swap them out now, and therefore you have Windows 10 machines now, because if you do that in 6 months, you've lost all of this money. It's that information that we can give you. It's that advice and deep analytics and that we can give you that allows you as an organization to make smart decisions. And we can only do this because we've got this platform that glues all of these different things together. And the final part of this platform is something that we call automation. And automation allows us to take the output of one of these products or one of these stacks and use it to drive another stack. So let's just say, for example, you have a product in security that detects an unknown executable. Someone's run an executable, or 15 users in a short period of time have run a new executable that you've never seen before. Well, that in itself could signify something important. So what do you do then? You raise an alert, you put something in the log. Well, no, using our automation platform, what we can do is we can have a ticket raised in your service management platform. We can have endpoint management go and remove that executable, temporarily disable it, take a copy of it so you as an administrator can analyze it. And therefore, we can use the asset management technologies to scan the environment for that executable existing anywhere else. Where did it come in? Which machine was it introduced to? Was it a remote machine? Was it a local machine? Things like that. It's our core platform that allows you to glue all of this together. Now, you don't need to use every single piece of Ivanti technology to get the benefit of this. Using our automation technologies, we can take those same events raised in the security technology and have them also raise tickets in other service management platforms as well, something that you may already have. If you're using a different endpoint management technology, let's say you're using SCCM, for example, and you're not using Ivanti's technology, that's fine as well. Our automation can actually log or drive those technologies so you can leverage what you already have today. The same for reporting and analytics. We can take data from all of these different spaces. And here's just some of the benefits that you get from using our technology. The presentation's focusing on security, but I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the other stuff that we can do with our unified IT platform as well. Things like automated onboarding and offboarding, automated Windows 10 migrations, management of mobile workforces, etc. But I want to dig into some of our security features and some of our endpoint security technologies that we have. I'm just going to take a stop at this point. Rich, do we have any questions at this point, or is there anything that's come to your mind?
As of right now, John, there are no questions at all. And folks, I do encourage you, as we get into the security portion of this presentation, any questions about these tools or what John is talking about, please type those questions, as I stated in the beginning, in the Q&A section of this presentation, and he'll go ahead and answer them for you. And I'll let you get on with it.
Awesome. So when it comes to our endpoint security capabilities, Ivanti is one of, if not the leader in patching and whitelisting. And the reality of it is that patching and whitelisting really takes care of 80 to 90% of issues as it comes to the endpoint. And when I talk about issues, I talk about like unauthorized pieces of technology, things that shouldn't be executed, things that shouldn't be allowed to be executed. And just applications that have vulnerabilities as well. If you actually go out and you survey, if you look at SANS, if you speak to Gartner or Forrester or anything like that, all of these experts or forums or knowledge sources will tell you that adequate patching and adequate whitelisting will take care of pretty much every problem that you have down at your endpoint as it's related to security. And when we talk about our 5 stacks or 5 pillars that we had before, the one on the left, the endpoint security, that is the one that really focuses on endpoint security. And within that stack, there are a number of different pieces of technology. Obviously, we've got the ability to patch, and we've got the ability to do application control as well. Now, within patching, we've got third-party patching, we've got traditional operating system patches. Our patches do apply to Mac, to Windows, to Linux, etc. And when it comes to application control, the application control is obviously your traditional whitelisting and blacklisting, but it's also going down to things like admin rights as well. So you may control which application can and cannot run, but when the application does run, what rights does it have? Does it run as an admin? Does it run with elevated rights? Does it run with permissions to do something than it would be able to do otherwise? And the same applies to the servers as well. So anything that you see there on the endpoint can also apply to the servers as well. Patching your servers, updating your servers, also controlling the applications on your servers as well. Now, like any piece of our puzzle, like any piece of the Ivanti technology stack, it comes with those core services. So you can use your endpoint security products and use things like your discovery services, use things like your reporting and analytics services, use things like your automation to really leverage that technology in a unified fashion to feed into different products and different technologies and different IT departments that you have out there. So how are we different? How is our whitelisting technology different to all of the other whitelisting technologies that are out there? Well, our whitelisting technology takes a different approach. One of the challenges with whitelisting is the sheer amount of executables that exist on a Windows machine. If you actually take Windows 10 and you go next, finish, and you just do a basic install, and maybe you install Office and a couple of other applications. If you drop to a command prompt and you do dir/s to list all subdirectories, star.exe, you are going to see hundreds, if not thousands, of executables that are just part of the base operating system and the few applications that you install. Now, if you do whitelisting properly, and when I say whitelist, then I mean block everything that you don't want to run except for the individual executables that you want to run, you have to whitelist a substantial amount of executables just to be able to use Windows, just to be able to log in and maybe run Office, for example. There are a substantial number of executables that you need to whitelist. So as a result, people don't do it. They either just don't do whitelisting at all, or they do a whitelisting configuration where they trust program files and the Windows folders, and the reality of it is it's often easy to get an executable into those folders, and you know there's ways around that. So, or they'll take the approach of going and subscribing to a database. And the problem with a database is somebody's got to maintain that database. What happens when you get a bespoke patch or a new update? Well, there's often a period of time where the database is also then updated as well, or you have to manually go and update the database, and there's a headache that's associated with that. With Ivanti's application control technology, we take an approach of trusting people, not files. We have a feature and a function within the technology called trusted ownership. Instead of trusting the individual executable itself, we trust who introduced the executable. So inside my IT organization, typically my IT team is trusted. I mean, they've got admin rights. I trust them that they know what they're doing. I trust them that they're going to bring in executables only that should be brought into the organization. So as a result, what I'll do is, based on the ownership, based on the introduction of these executables, I'll say if it was brought in by my admin team, it's trusted, I'm allowed to run it. If it was brought in by someone other than my admin team, then it's not trusted. It doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what it's called, doesn't matter where it's stored, whether it's on my machine, whether it's on the network, whether it's on a USB drive, it doesn't matter. If it's not brought in by someone authorized, someone trusted, it is going to be blocked at the endpoint. And what that means is that we're not blocking, we're not stopping users downloading stuff, or we're not stopping users from controlling stuff. We're not even stopping users from opening files. But if that open operation is done with an execute request, in other words, it's an application that's being run, we will look at who introduced it, and based on that, we will allow or deny it. It's a much easier way to do whitelisting. It's a much more simplistic way. It's a much more effective way. And instead of having a list of thousands of executables, we typically have lists of a dozen, a half a dozen or so accounts or groups that are allowed to introduce content into the organization. It's a very, very simple way of managing executables. Then beyond that, you can go to your traditional whitelisting and blacklisting, and you would use that for something like license management or control of known good applications. But to block 100% of unauthorized applications, we would default back down to your whitelisting approach. The application control functionality also then comes with the rights management, the privilege management, the ability to control based on signatures, limited the number of times an application can be run, and so forth. So there's a lot of functionality that sit behind just the traditional whitelisting that you might want to use as well. The second thing I want to highlight here is patching. And patching will always be the first line of defense in any security strategy that's out there. Vendors release patches every single month, all the time. There's a hole found in an application, a patch comes out. And typically the best way to protect your organization is to apply these patches in a timely manner. It's to update the components when Microsoft recommend. It's to install a new version of Adobe Reader when Adobe recommends it. It's to keep your WinZip applications or your WinZip tools up to date. And the reason being is because if you actually take a look at a lot of the exploits and a lot of the attacks that are out there, they come in the form of exploiting a vulnerability in the application. Now, occasionally there'll be a 0-day, for example, something that's not known to the vendor yet, and there'll be an attack out there. But these are very, very rare. Normally, when an attack goes public, the vendor is also aware of it, and they've made a patch for it. It's up to you. It's down to you to apply that patch in a timely manner. The challenges that an organization faces when it comes to patching, however, is the fact that, hey, patches often need testing. How do you know you're not going to install it and it's going to break your organization, it's going to break your environment, break the applications that you have out there as well? And how do you curate these patches? Do you have a person sat there just browsing the web, going to all of these different vendors on a daily basis and grabbing the latest patches? That's what we do for you. That's the power of our technology. So we have a team whose job it is to go out and curate those patches, test those patches, put those patches into our catalog that you can then just pull down as and when those patches are released. We do that heavy lifting for you, and our patch catalog extends just beyond your traditional Microsoft or vendor-specific patches. They include third-party applications for a substantial number of products that are out there as well, and we continue to expand. That patch. We have tools and technologies that play part of our endpoint security strategy, just like you can go out and you can find from other vendors as well. And as I said at the start of the presentation, the problem in IT is not the individual products. It's not the individual pieces of technology that are out there. It's the number of them. And we address this solution by having this unified approach, by leveraging our core services that allows you then to drive other pieces of technology that you have out there. We allow you to unify the tools and technologies and platforms that you have. And this is really what gives us the power above and beyond a lot of the competitive solutions that are out there. So using the pieces of the Ivanti Endpoint Security Platform, you can drive your endpoint management technologies, you can drive your IT asset management technologies, you can drive your service management technologies or your identity technologies as well. And likewise, you can use the outputs from all of those other different pieces of the platform as well to drive your endpoint security technology. And this is done with those 3 core services. This is an example of using the unified IT platform in a security focus that we have customers doing today, isolation and remediation. In this scenario, a piece of malware is detected. It's either detected with our whitelisting technology, in other words, you shouldn't have been able to run it, or it's detected using something like our antivirus technology, for example. And based on that malware being detected, it's automatically then blocked and blacklisted. So nobody else in your organization can run it, nobody else can execute it. A task then kicks off to raise an alert in the service management platform. So a ticket is raised that someone needs to then action, go, follow up, etc. At the same time, what we've done is we've isolated that machine. We've closed down all of the ports, all of the communications on that machine. That machine cannot do anything at this point except for one thing: allow a remote control connection from a trusted source, in other words, a system administrator. The system administrator, based on the service management ticket, then goes and performs an investigation. They connect to the machine, they see what happened, they see what the malware did. They can then make a decision to either re-image the machine. In other words, they'll use their endpoint management technology to kick off a re-imaging process, to go and restore all of the data, to go and reinstall all the applications, or they can use their endpoint management platform to remediate as well. If there's just some files that they need to remove, they can do that. This is an example which is using multiple pieces of the Ivanti portfolio to give you a unified approach to malware detection or to unauthorized execution detection. And what's driving all of this, those cogs that you see in the middle there, they're driven by our core services. They're driven by our automation engine. They're driven by our reporting analytics engine. They're also driven by our discovery engine as well. We also make it easy. If you do want to buy into the Ivanti platform and you do want to take advantage of these benefits, we make it easy to license for strategic security projects. Typically, when we license our technology, customers come in one of 3 ways. They can come in a tactical approach. In other words, hey, I just want to do rights management. I want to buy the rights management technology. And you can do that. You can go and buy that specific piece of technology. Then we have what we call our ELA, and our ELA comes in 2 forms. One is what we call a pick 2. In other words, you pick 2 pillars to do the project that you want to do, and I've got a slide on this in a second. Or the strategic approach, which is, I want everything that Ivanti offers. The pick 2 approach allows you to take on projects like I want to do secure user management, in which case I'll use the security stack, and I'll also use the endpoint management stack. The IT service management, I'll use the security stack and I'll use the service desk. I'll use the service management technologies, for example. Or I want to do secure IT asset management, so I'll use the security stack and I'll use the asset management pillar as well. Ultimately, what our Pick 2 ELA license allows you to do is to actually take an approach of strategic IT management. I've got a problem, or I've got a strategic initiative I want to solve. I can use one of 2 pillars. I can use 2 pillars in the Ivanti portfolio to ultimately achieve my goals. And with that, I want to say thank you for your attention.
We actually have a couple questions.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to answer.
All right. The first question comes from Alex. He wants to know, can the endpoint security automate patches for servers that are hosted in the cloud?
Yeah, so providing you have control of those, providing you have control of those servers, in other words, you can install an agent on those servers. Absolutely, yes. Where it wouldn't help is obviously where you have a vendor that's doing those patches. But again, so long as you have the ability to install software, you have the ability to install an agent, absolutely, the technology can be used to patch servers in the cloud. And in fact, even internally, so for all of our own infrastructure, even that we host like our cloud technologies on, our patching technology is responsible for patching all of those components and tools as well.
Okay, and another question that we have comes from Adam. How is the principle of least privilege integrated into your solution?
So with least privilege, our application control technology, our application control product has what we call a rights management feature, and this is what really would implement your least privilege. So with the application control rights management technology, you've got two approaches, two ways in which you can do it. If you've got admin rights, you can have the technology take away those admin rights at login. It can automatically remove those admin rights and then selectively grant either elevated rights for applications or individual components. So as an example, when you take away admin rights from a user, one of the most common applications that you will struggle with are development tools, Visual Studio, things like that. And the reason being is because they often contain a lot of debugging tools, and a lot of debugging tools need the ability to inspect memory. And you can't do that unless you have elevated rights. You can take an approach of you could elevate Visual Studio, so you can say whenever someone runs Visual Studio, it's going to run with admin rights, and that would work. That would take away those problems. The reality of it is, what you actually need is one privilege. A privilege is a little bit different. It's a Windows privilege. You actually need the SE debug privilege, which gives you the ability to inspect memory. What you can actually do is you can say Visual Studio has the SE debug privilege. So even Visual Studio isn't running with admin rights, it just has that individual privilege. And as a result, when they actually run the debugger, it's going to go and allow that debugger to inspect memory and run as it would normally. So that's one approach you can take. The other approach you can take is you can actually remove the admin rights from all of the users, so the users don't even have admin rights. And then again, you use the tool to selectively grant either elevated rights in the applications or assigning the individual privileges as themselves as well. You don't really want to do a third option, which is selectively remove admin rights from applications. It's not really very secure. So you want to do one of the first two. And we have tools, there's tools which are part of the product which allow you to go and discover what admin rights are needed. So you can set up a tool that will actually say, hey, this application needed admin rights because of this. And you can use that information then to formulate your policies. Hopefully that answered the question. If not, I mean, feel free to give a follow-up.
Okay, and that does conclude our questions for today. I want to thank you for helping us out with this presentation, John. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure thing. And look, if anyone has any questions and they want to follow up, I mean, they can obviously follow up through you guys, or they can hit me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You are stealing my thunder. Very good. Now, for those of you, I want to thank everyone who has taken time out of your very busy schedules to join us for today's presentation. And if you do have further questions, and I know a number of you have asked to actually see the security tool in action, and that wasn't part of today's presentation. Maybe it's something we should do in the future, but we definitely would love to help you see that and be interested in helping your organization look into it further. So by all means, reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278, or simply email us at info@flycastpartners.com. We'll go ahead and reach out to you immediately and try to get any questions that you may have answered. And once again, thank all of you for attending today's presentation. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks again, John.
Happy to help. Thank you.